Welcome back to Whiteout Weekly on our first unfortunate losing week, 7-1 Nittany Lions. We say it time and time again, time is a flat circle. It really is. 8 years in a row, Dave. 8 years in a row. And this year hurt maybe the most for me because I know this is going to be the worst. No offense to Will Howard, the PA kid, but that was the worst quarterback from Ohio State we're going to face with the NIL landscape. They had basically their second string offensive line out there, and they completely pushed us around like always. Thought it was going to be different. It was not. And maybe that hype video that we put out where the Joel Klatt is like, Franklin says it in his press conferences, they're not ready. And whose fault is that? I propose that question. Whose fault is that we have lost 8 in a fucking row to this team?
The man in charge, Mr. Franklin himself. I mean, if you look, you see the stats posted all over the internet, but I mean, they are what they are. 1 in 14 versus top five opponents, 3 in 18 versus top 10, 13 and 27 versus top 25 opponents. And
That's astounding. Just astounding stats against top tier opponents. It's really begging the question. Like it's all on him. It really is.
yeah, I mean, look, you're on your third set of coordinators. And I know we do, but for any of those that frequent Penn State Twitter, it's a large Twitter following that's out there, but it's typically divided right down the middle between those that want him out, those that believe that he's the best that we're going to get. And you have the camps that say, hey, most coaches don't have a good record against top five opponents, but the reality of this situation is it's not even just against Ohio State. It just happens to be the opponent that gets us every year. As you mentioned, 8 years in a row. And the year before, 8 years ago, it was a miraculous block field goal to get that
Yeah.
win. But it boils down to having your team ready to go for a big time game. And whether or not
That's
Ohio
really his
State's
role.
always in the top five, it's about, I mean, you can't lose that game 8 years in a row. Yeah, the talent is probably the most comparable that it's been, especially I know we have the days in NIL and you have Ohio State that spent $20 million on the roster. Everyone knows it. But ultimately, a lot of that game came down to just execution, silly penalties, and just some question mark play calling, especially down on the goal line. And then ultimately, you had some position groups that didn't show up. You had a receiving group that had 3 total catches. You had 2 stud running backs that had 47 combined rushing yards, 3 for 11 on third down, which we know bit us in the ass last year in this game. And we've been successful, a high rate of success on third down this year, almost 48% on the year. Turn around and go 3 for 11. And then Ohio State, in their run game, they gash you for 40 carries, 176 yards. And that last
With
drive,
filling guys too. It's not like it was their,
yeah, it was a makeshift O
top
line.
tier offensive line. It was literally a makeshift offensive line pushing us 3 yards back every single time.
Mm-hmm. And you had Ohio, I know it was already kind of writing was already on the wall, but Ohio State had the ball on that last drive to clinch it. Everyone in the greater State College area knew that they were running the ball down your throat and you still couldn't stop them. So it's just about having the team ready to go. And he's just, proven time and time again that you can't trust them in a big game. And yet we got a great opportunity still in front of us to be able to make the playoff, potentially host the playoff game. But games like that continue to have you question, even if they get to that moment, are they going to be ready to go and able to get a big time win like that because he just the record shows that he has been able to get this team over the hump.
And again, last week, uh, my iron line was Tony Rojas, but in a bigger sense, missed tackles, missed tackle discrepancy. Penn State 7 missed tackles, Ohio State 2,
Hmm.
and that showed up late in the game. But I think we took a good social media break, cleansed ourselves. We're ready. It's the week. The premier college football ticket to own in week 11, Beaver Stadium under the lights for a Penn State whiteout game. This year's opponent, Washington Huskies, coming off a 26-21 win over, is it a rival, USC?
Hey,
We'll call it
former
a rival.
Pac-12 foe. I think it's a
Yeah,
rivalry.
their old rival, Pac-12. USC, they're now 5-4, 3-3 in the conference. That brought them up a little bit, but they're being thrown into the Lions' Den as a welcome to the Big Ten by Penn State, as the greatest show in college football will take place at 8 p.m. Eastern, streaming exclusively on Peacock. Is that
Mm,
right?
it's on Peacock.
Bezos getting us all. So I saw the line at 13 and a half last time I checked,
Hmm.
and over unders going between 46 and a half and 47.
Yeah, last I saw it was at 46 and a half.
So Washington roster overview. They've been again bitten by the injury bug. We talked about this with UCLA. They lost their left tackle, Maximus McCree. What a name. To a thumb slash hand injury versus Indiana. Coach Jed Fish said it's not season ending. They did lose a big part of their defensive line edge, Zach Dufree, who I've never heard of this. He is turf toe on both feet.
Ooh,
How is he even walking?
ooh.
Absurd. But having a great season. He's still fourth on the team in pressures, despite missing so many games. And a guy who they had very, very high hopes for going into the season, tight end Quentin Moore. He suffered a substantial MCL injury in week 1, and they are not sure if it's season ending, but it looks like it will be. Some macro again, going with the macro stats, got to make that a segment that I found. Washington, the Huskies, tied for 109th in the FBS in penalties this year with 63 penalties in 9 games. Also, third down conversion, they're 92nd in college football with a 37.7 conversion rate. As I said, their head coach, Jed Fish, and they are led by transfer quarterback William Wyatt Rogers III from Old Miss.
One with the full name.
Yes, I'm going with the full name the whole time. Every time we tweet about him, every time I talk about him, William Wyatt Rogers III. So it's a Southern tradition. You got to
Yeah.
respect
Yeah, say with a little Southern twang.
it. And maybe not. William
William
Wyatt
Wyatt
III,
Rogers the third.
the third. You got to really stretch
There
the
you go.
third out. So he's really had an up and down season. First 5 games, 10 touchdowns, no picks. And the last 3, he's had an interception in each of those contests, including 2 against Indiana. And it's really not his fault. As Jed Fish says, they don't really have any solidified starters on their offensive line. And they have allowed a total of 101 pressure this season,
Mhm.
22 quarterback hits. So, gotta feel bad for Wyatt Rogers third, just getting shellacked back there. So, under pressure, He's PFF's 19th ranked quarterback in the Big Ten with at least five dropbacks. So actually ranked probably behind some backup quarterbacks there. They're
Hmm.
under pressure. He has 94 dropbacks, 35 of 73 for 457 yards. That's 6.3 yards per attempt. Two touchdowns, three picks, 10 throwaways. That kind of helps his sack total. I noticed that their sack total was way lower than I thought it was going to be, only
18.
sacks on the season. And under pressure, he's only dealing a 60.1 NFL passer rating. And did they change up their offensive coordinator with Jed Fish coming in, or has there been a coordinator there for a while?
They did. Jed brought in his guy from Arizona, actually, Brennan Carroll, who's the former offensive play caller at Arizona while Jed Fish was there. Brennan Carroll, actually the son of Pete Carroll,
No way. Pete
former
Carroll,
USC
surprised.
head
He's
coach, Seahawks head
surprisingly
coach.
old. So how old's Brandon Carroll?
That's a good question, actually. Let me check real quick.
Pete Carroll's like in his I think he's in his 80s.
45.
There we go. So maybe Pete Carroll's in his 70s.
Yeah, I think he's like mid 70s.
What's Brandon Carroll got going on offense?
So a lot of it's predicated on the run game. Again, Trent, anytime he got a new coach, he's going to bring his guys, his coaches and his guys. So you got Jonah Coleman, transfer from Arizona, who's been somewhat limited due to his physical running style has been banged up a little bit, but nonetheless, still one of the top yardage leaders in the Big Ten. He's actually fourth in the Big Ten in rushing with 889 rushing yards. Had a big game against USC last week, 104 yards, two touchdowns. He's a physical back, averaging 6.3 yards per carry. So they depend a lot on that running game. And then they also got a big target in the passing game to complement that as well with wide receiver Denzel Boston, 6'4", 209, lines up all over the field in a couple of different formations, but 67 targets on the year, 44 catches, 583 yards, and 9 TDs. And when you look at this offense overall in Brendan Carroll's scheme, it's a lot. It's very comparable to what you and I would run in college football 25
Mm-hmm.
with very familiar play calls from either doing the coach suggestions or just knowing those formations. But lots of shallow crosses, lots of hitch routes. They like to utilize Boston, especially in the red zone with that big frame. But also lining up all over the field. You got Giles Jackson, 60 targets, 49 catches on those 60 targets for 553 yards, three touchdowns. Smaller receiver, 5'9", 187. So he's a little bit more of their speed demon. You'll see lots of slants, drags, shallow and deep crosses from him, along with the slot fades in the red zone when a lot of the attention is on Boston and kind of those box out basketball type schemes. But Giles Jackson, Denzel Boston, definitely the key focal points. And then at tight end, you got Kaliki Latu, the senior transfer from Nevada, 34 targets, 28 catches, 265 yards on the year. He's a very reliable target, good blocking tight end. But those are definitely the key guys to zero in on. And then another wide receiver to note would be Jeremiah Hunter. He's the Cal transfer. So again, transfers the theme, not just from Arizona, but Jed Fish bringing in, his own type of talent or trying to bring in his own talent here in year one. And they've been getting a lot of target share across the board here and getting some production out of these guys.
Yeah, so, I mean, Denzel Boston and Giles Jackson kind of dominate targets.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Jonah Coleman, 5'9", 229,
Mm-hmm.
and just a dancing bear. He has some
Yeah.
ridiculous jump cuts, some straightaway speed. he's a problem not only in the running game but also in the passing game when he gets some grass in front of him. I noticed I did the Big Ten and 60. Shout out Big Ten Network. Denzel Boston. He Rogers, William Wyatt Rogers III goes to him constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime that he's in trouble, he's the comfort blanket that he goes to.
Yep.
Kind of started him out with a lot of slants, tons of slants, and then eventually taking that deep shot, just like we said, that we would kind of drop game plan and Madden. And the one play I noticed they love to run, I think they ran it twice in a row in the red zone, is that slot fade. If you've ever run that in Madden, where slot guy fades to the corner, outside wide receiver does a little hitch route,
Yep.
tight end in the block, obviously, because their offensive line is struggling. But somewhat of a vanilla offense, you got to watch out for Jonah Coleman. He can
Mm-hmm.
definitely break open a game. Same with Denzel Boston. Again, they're going to be running a lot of underneath routes for him. Gotta maintain deep coverage when they take that deep shot. And offensive line again, where they are struggling. Last week they had 7 different linemen who had at least 15 snaps against USC. The stalwarts on the line, offensive guard Landon Hatchett. He played every snap against USC. Same with their center, D'Angelo Tatali, and right tackle, Drew as a party. Left tackle, Khalid Tafai, excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
is kind of a rotational guy. They spell him with someone else. Same with left guard. Like I said, Jed Fish said there's no clear cut starters for this Huskies offensive line, which leads me to believe that our defensive line is going to hunt. And we'll talk about that later.
Mm-hmm.
But let's quickly go over their defense. Very recognizable name, a pit bull in human form, Steve Belichick. Runs that 4-2-5 defense like his father. Likes to have 5 men on the ball sometimes to disguise coverages. And his work has shown up this year. Washington currently has the second best pass defense in all of college football, allowing 142 yards per game. And they are led by some studs in the backfield, Dave.
Yeah, corner. You got a couple here. You got Thaddeus Dixon, the senior so far this year, 39 targets, a 41% catch rate, nine pass breakups on the year, one interception. With those nine pass breakups, he's actually tied for 14th, or that's good for 14th most in all of FBS or the entire FBS, all Division One.
Wow.
He's a transfer last year from Long Beach City College, but he's definitely come into his own this year and been proven to be a dominant corner there on the outside. And then alongside him on the other side, you got Ephesians Prysock, another great name there.
Yeah.
We're getting really tested here with our name pronunciation so far this year. But
Still
he's the
more to come.
Arizona
Still more to
more
come.
to come. He's the Arizona transfer following Jed Fish over 32 targets, 205 yards allowed, four pass breakups, nearly had an interception so far this year. But those are two stalwarts to look out on the from a cornerback front. And then just a couple other names to note. You got at the nickel, you got Jordan Shaw. He's a freshman, former Indiana commit. 29 targets so far this year, 58.6% catch rate, six pass breakups. That, as you notice, that's the theme here is they have their hands in on a lot of pass attempts.
Yeah, they're
Um,
all over the football. They run a lot of man to man all
yeah.
over the football.
So
Yeah.
all over it, all in to break up, any pass that they can. You got Cameron Broussard from Sacramento State, two picks on the year, and a pass breakup on 19 total targets. And then you got in their what you would call their spy or lion spot, Cameron Fibiculana. I think I
Hmm.
got that right.
Yeah, but be good on it.
But Steve Belichick has definitely emphasized with this group breaking up the football at the point of contact. Now, with that too, I think it's worth noting that a lot of the competition that they face, especially in Big Ten play, has been run heavy offenses. In a lot of those games, if not all of them, they have still lost those ball games. So although they're not giving up a ton of yardage through the air, not to say that, hey, they're not a great pass defensive team, but they are, they are still, at the end of the day, they're a 5-4 football team, right? So there's holes here to be able to be exploited, but those are definitely some names to look out for in the secondary.
That is good overlook. That yeah, that their schedule kind of dictated them kind of being a little bit overvalued in terms of their pass defense, them playing
Yeah,
against
when you look at the teams
run
they played,
defense.
especially in Big Ten, and even that they lost to Rutgers, Iowa, Indiana. Indiana didn't have Curtis O'Rourke in that matchup, so they relied a lot on that ground game. But if I'm not mistaken, I believe all, if not most, of the teams that they have faced are somewhere near in the 100 range of pass efficiency. So not very strong passing offenses, but they have proven that they're able to shut it down. So that's definitely worth noting. But just wanted to call that out.
Yeah, one more. I mean, that ties in perfectly with your matchup to win, but
Mhm.
just one more important player that you're going to see all over the field. You're going
Yeah.
to hear his name all broadcast. Linebacker Carson Bruner, true senior, coming up through the program, team leader in tackles. He is terrific in coverage, leads the team in interceptions with three, but definitely exploitable in some situations, given so many responsibilities that he has when they run that 5-man front. He's literally alone, just by himself as the linebacker. So if we get Singleton or Tyler Warren on him, that's an auto mismatch. But
Mhm.
he can hang, and he's also stout against the run. Like I said, team leader in tackles, no missed tackles this season, and he's a thumper. I
Mhm.
get Waterboy vibes from him. Just whoa, bang, slamming.
Lots.
Get an
Courtesy of Captain
interception.
Insano.
Captain Infano is ready to go. He had an interception last week, but it was kind of like the USC player. It hit him in the hands and then popped up and then bounced right back into him. So he's around the ball at all times. That's nothing against him picking that ball off. Just another impact player on that defense that you are going to hear a lot about.
Yeah,
But
he's got NFL pedigree too. He's the
yeah,
son of former Washington and Steelers tight end Mark Bruner. So he's got it in his blood. And
I
also
did
crazy
not know
stat
that.
too. He's the team's active leader. I know they've had a lot of turnover, a lot of transfers, but I believe he's the team active leader in interceptions with 5, which is an astounding stat considering this is his first year as a full-time starter.
Oh, okay. I completely misheard you. Team active leader. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, five is the season is the record for season interceptions. So going back to, like we said, kind of a stout pass defense, but going against run heavy teams, and they have struggled. And I believe that's where you're going for your matchup to win the game.
Yeah, it's got to be the running game that for Penn State that finally gets it going. But for Washington, past 4 games since that Michigan matchup, on 155 rush attempts, they're allowing 748 yards. It's 4.8 yards per carry, non-sack adjusted, and 6 touchdowns. And they've given up 3 straight 100+ yard rushers. So that's where that comes into play, where the teams that they're playing, where although they're struggling through the air, they're getting it done on the ground. So you got Caleb Johnson from Iowa, all American type back. Yes, he's a top talent, but he was able to gash them. Justice Ellison from Indiana, and then Woody Marks. last week for USC, went over 100 yards. I know Woody Marks had a number one, believe he went for over 100 when we played him as well. But uh,
in two losses too. So
yeah,
very
so Washington definitely has proven that they're very vulnerable in that run game. So for me this week in the best environment in college football, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen have struggled mightily since Big Ten play has kicked off.
true.
So definitely looking for at least one of those guys, ideally both. I know that's a dream scenario, but having both or at least one of them go for 100 plus is very doable and very much needed to get that running game going again and really have the confidence brewing there for the home stretch here and hopefully heading into potentially still a Big Ten championship game. I know they need some help here to be able to get there, but then also potential home playoff matchup. So got to get those guys going and got to show that we can do it against some stiffer competition.
So I actually looked it up for my matchup to win. And I agree with everything you just said. Completely agree. Um, but I'm going to stick to the same kind of situation. Trenches,
Mhm.
the defensive line, every single one of them. After that game, getting pushed around by Ohio State's second string unit, they have to be so pissed off and ready
Mhm.
to tee off against this Washington Huskies downtrodden offensive line. Looked it up. Washington 18 sacks in 9 games, 9 pressures, 2 QB hits. Oh, that was just against USC. Excuse me. That's not even their season total. That was just last week against USC. So,
That sounds like a season's worth.
and then before that, game before that, Indiana 17 pressures. Uh, William Wyatt Rogers III hit 6 times and sacked thrice. So expect a big bounce back from that defensive line, in particular, Abdul Carter and my seasonal Iron Line to watch, Zane Duran. I think he's going to have one of the best games of his Penn State career this Saturday in the
Mhm.
whiteout at 8 p.m. So to round this out, give me your Iron Line the people need to watch.
Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. I'm going to say it's home blue in the face. That's all you need to know.
Do
Again,
it.
just to
Say it to your blue in the face. I dare you.
to lay some more statistics on you. The Huskies, just to go back to what they're giving up and where what the opportunity that lies ahead here for these two backs for Penn State, allowing 151 rushing yards per game. Like I said, over 4 yards a carry. It's 14th out of 18th in the Big Ten. Also giving up 12, they've given up 12, 20 plus yard rushes. So when you talk Penn State, we've talked a lot about explosive plays this year. Haven't seen a ton out of the run game. I think Singleton had a 27-yard scamper against Wisconsin. That's probably the last big play we had in the run game. So going back a couple weeks here,
Yeah, having nightmares of last year,
yeah.
not being in
So
great form.
this is for sure the opportunity to turn that around, get those guys going, get them some confidence back. Not to say Singleton was definitely I mean, he was the only part of the pass game against Ohio State. He had 6 catches, which which was good for most on the team, but definitely
I
have
think
to get
Tyler
him.
Warren led the team in rushing, correct?
He did. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it was
like
41
your
yards.
tight end leading the team in rushing. Come on,
Yeah.
you got to
So
get better.
gotta
You got to get
all the
better.
more reason here.
Coach
Gotta get those
than
two
that.
guys going. So those are the two guys I'm zeroing in on. So between the matchup and Iron Lions, it's gotta be the running game.
I'm gonna go with it's kind of scratch pick, but not really. Zion Tracy,
Hey.
obviously getting a ton of buzz around his name after that pick six last week, but I noticed he had a nice little 14-yard scamper on a punt return, the
Mhm.
nice little 7-yard scamper. So he's not afraid to bring the ball field on punts. Washington has a pretty terrible special teams unit on kickoffs. They're ranked 118th in the FBS, so Singleton could actually break one, but they're 124th of 133 FBS teams in punt return defense, allowing 15.47 yards per return. Now, that doesn't jump out on paper, but that unit is also very thin given all the injuries around the team to starters. So they're going to be playing some guys who have not gotten a lot of reps, even on special teams. So watch out for Zion Tracy on special teams, getting more reps, getting more returns. And I think he's going to play more at
Mhm.
cornerback and possibly break up some passes, maybe get another interception. Keep that train rolling. Keep the heater going for Zion. So to end it out, we got a minus 13 and a half spread. Croatian Bear. What's your prediction?
I think Penn State wins this one. I think they
And
cover.
46 and a half, 47 total. So,
I'm going to go with Penn State 28-13.
okay. Wait, what'd you say? 2013,
28-13.
2013. I'm changing mine now. I'm going to go 27 to 10.
Ooh.
I think they get a late touchdown. I think we dominate the line of scrimmage, and I think their penalties combined with their third down
Mhm.
conversion rate being so low is going to end up biting them in the caboose.
Mhm.
So thank you all once again for tuning in to Whiteout Weekly, listening to two guys talk about one of the things they love the most. We appreciate all the support, all the love across all social media platforms. However, you give it, we appreciate it. We notice it. And we will be back next week, like we always are. Dave Barron, Matt Martelluzzi, signing out for Whiteout Weekly.
Love you guys.